Welcome to Book of Recaps. The movie begins at John Kennedy Airport. Mr. Viktor Naworski, who speaks Bulgarian and has limited understanding of English, is denied entry at the check-in point due to language difficulties. If you like my video, sub it, like it. It's totally free. He is directed to meet Frank Dixon for help with immigration issues. Frank explains that a war erupted in Viktor's country, Krakow, leading to a military coup. New York has suspended all travel privileges from Krakow. Viktor's visa is now invalid because of the coup, and his country is under military control. Despite Frank's efforts to explain, Viktor is unable to grasp the situation. Using an apple, Frank illustrates that Krakow no longer exists, rendering all visas and passports from there invalid. Viktor is now considered a citizen of nowhere, but he struggles to comprehend these explanations. However, since Viktor hasn't committed any offenses and cannot be detained, Frank decides to let him live freely within the confines of the International Transit Lounge. Viktor is equipped with a food voucher, prepaid call card, and a pager in case Frank needs to reach him urgently. He also receives an ID granting access to the transit area. Although Viktor realizes he is in the middle of nowhere, he can roam within the airport but is restricted from entering New York City. While in the lounge, he watches news about his country and nervously attempts to call for help in Bulgarian, but no one understands him, resulting in unanswered calls. During an attempt to help a lady with her bag, Viktor loses his food voucher. That night, he constructs a makeshift bed with chairs in the lounge and sleeps. However, he becomes paranoid when an airplane's movements and noises wake him up. On that day, Frank gets promoted to acting field commissioner, but he is concerned about Viktor's presence affecting his promotion. Viktor, in a bathrobe, attempts another journey to New York, but is rejected at the check-in spot. Frank believes Viktor should have tried to escape, anticipating arrest, which prompts Frank to worry about Viktor's impact on his career. To address this, Frank decides to open the door for Viktor to escape and potentially become the responsibility of another New York agency. Frank meets Viktor and informs him that the door will open at noon for 5 minutes. Unaware of the setup, just as promised, the door opens at noon. However, after contemplating escape for a few minutes, Viktor decides to stay in the airport, continuing his journey in the land of nowhere. In the afternoon, Viktor feels hungry and starts pushing carts to earn money, eventually buying a burger. He continues this routine while also dedicating time to reading to improve his English comprehension. He visits the embassy daily, spending about 2 hours requesting a new visa. When flight attendant Torres questions his persistence, Viktor explains that despite receiving a red stamp, he believes he'll eventually get a green one, giving him a 50-50 chance of entering New York City. Torres is surprised but smiles at his determination. Frank, wanting Viktor out of the airport, creates a new position for passenger assistants in charge of the carts to frustrate Viktor. However, instead of attempting to escape due to hunger, Viktor chooses to stay hungry. One night, another worker named Cruz offers Viktor food in exchange for information about Torres, as she has developed a fondness for Viktor. Viktor agrees, curious about why Cruz needs the information. Cruz describes Torres as a wild stallion, a term Viktor doesn't understand. To find out its meaning, he asks Torres, receives an answer, and shares the information with Cruz in exchange for food. He continues with this routine for several days, managing to get food until Torres eventually catches him. Frank, wanting to find a way to get Viktor out of the airport, considers using a law that grants visitors asylum if they fear returning to their home country. He believes instilling fear in Viktor could be the key. While the usual process for asylum seekers may take about 6 months, if Viktor applies, he might be able to stay in New York throughout the processing period. Frank calls Viktor and suggests that he can enter the country if he admits to being afraid of Krakow. Viktor asks for clarification on what fear Frank is referring to, and Frank specifies fear of his home country. Viktor responds that he is not afraid to return home. Frank tries to persuade Viktor by highlighting the unfortunate events in Krakow, but Viktor maintains that he is not afraid. In frustration, Frank dismisses Viktor from his office, stating that Viktor has no hope of setting foot in New York City. As Viktor leaves Frank's office, he notices a lady named Amelia Warren by the phone booth in tears after being stood up by her married boyfriend. He attempts to console Amelia, and in gratitude, she invites him on a date in New York to eat cannelloni. However, since he can't leave the airport, he decides to buy cannelloni for her there. To do so, he needs about $40, prompting him to search for a job. Unfortunately, all the shop owners turn him down, providing various excuses or asking him to return later. After facing rejection from multiple shop owners, he decides to find a place to sleep. He stumbles upon an unfinished area, paints and completes it. The workers are astonished the next day, and the manager, impressed by his skills, offers him a job. Victor earns some money and reunites with Amelia. She invites him to lunch, and he agrees. Frank, attempting to get Victor out of the airport, calls federal authorities, but his plans fail again. His supervisors arrive for his promotion supervision that day. Meanwhile, Victor prepares for his date with Amelia, acquiring a dress. When she arrives, they go on their date. However, during the outing, she is approached by her married boyfriend, whom she has been waiting for about 7 years. Victor suggests they stop waiting and toss their pagers away, symbolizing a fresh start. Victor also agrees to help Cruz deliver a ring to Torres, resulting in their marriage. After Amelia travels again and returns, Frank stops her to explain why Victor remained at the airport. Angry that Victor hid this information, Amelia confronts him and storms out. Victor reveals that he has a surprise for her, a 1,000 fountains art. When she questions why he is in New York and what's special about the can he carries, he tells her it's a jazz can containing the promise he made to his father. He shares with Amelia that in 1958, his father wanted autographs from jazz musicians after seeing their photographs. Although he obtained autographs from all but Benny Gaussen, who didn't respond to emails until after his father's death, Victor vowed to fulfill this last promise. However, his reasons for waiting have now changed. He is waiting for Amelia. Their conversation concludes with a kiss. After this encounter, Victor learns that there is now peace in Krakosia. The airport celebrates him, and Amelia gets him a one-day pass into New York to obtain Benny's autograph. Sadly, Amelia reveals she must leave him as her long-awaited lover has finally arrived. Victor attempts to stamp his visa, but Frank, who must sign it, refuses, demanding he return home. Frank threatens to expose his friend's secrets and punish them if Victor refuses. Reluctantly, Victor agrees to go home, leading some friends, like Gupta, who is a criminal, to surrender themselves for arrest. This motivates Victor to stand up against Frank. The airport crew and workers give Victor numerous gifts. Frank calls a judge to intervene, but even the judge supports Victor. Victor leaves the airport, meets Benny to obtain his autograph, and then heads back to his country. The recap concludes with gratitude for watching.